Here's Brody Brazil.
Major League Baseball owners had just approved relocation. We were headed into the winter meetings, and the A's were kind of a big story. There were a lot of questions about them. It doesn't seem like, though, going into this year's winter meetings next week, they're not as big of a deal, almost to the point that they're not necessarily on anybody's radar. Are you seeing it that way, too?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fascinating, I think, what David Forst is going to be doing with this club. I mean, they were pretty decent in the second half. They had a winning record, and not by much. They had a great record in July, August, and they were over 500 at the end in the second half, which is incredible considering the 100-loss seasons and the first half of 24. But, I mean, they've got a lot of work to do off the field, but even on the field, there are some things that they need. Obviously, a third baseman, they got to figure out the pitching. But a year ago at the winter meetings, you're right. I remember we were in Nashville, and I remember speaking with David Forst, and I said, how the heck are you going to sign any free agent when you don't know where the team is going to play in 2025? And if you remember, we didn't know that Sacramento was going to be the interim site yet.
Right, correct.
They were still considering the Giants up to 40 games. They were still considering maybe 2 or 3 parks where they could just alternate from field to field, depending on what month it was in the event availability. But yeah, a year later, they know where they're going to be, even though it's a minor league park. They know that they're going to be better. Maybe not enough to make the playoffs, but shoot, if they have a winning record, if they even have a 500 record, as we know with the Giants under Farhan Zaidi, you're always in it entering September.
Bob Nightingale said recently on social media that the Athletics plan to spend money this upcoming year, increasing their payroll to about $100 million, keeping owners and the Players Association off their back with the revenue-sharing money they receive. Are you expecting that too? Because again, last year at this time, David Forst said, I'm having a hard time enticing free agents.
Yeah.
We know the Walker Buehler situation, how his name was out there. Apparently he doesn't want to play in a minor league ballpark in Sacramento. Do you see the A's getting to 9 figures in their payroll this upcoming year?
That's I'd be amazed. Speaking with David Forst at the GM meetings last month in San Antonio, and yes, we're going back to Texas and Dallas for the winter meetings, and that's where the All-Star game was too in the World Series the year before. It seems to be the
Texas
center of the baseball universe all of a sudden. And David was saying that the payroll is going up. Obviously, it was lowest in baseball last year and the year before. Attendance was the worst, and for obvious reasons, not just because of the play on the field, but payroll going up from whether it's 60-something to 80-something to 100-something, it's still going to be bottom of the barrel. I mean, baseball teams that don't have $100 million payrolls just aren't trying. And that includes 4 or 5 teams. And you can name them, Pittsburgh. And I mean, Tampa Bay is in that group, even though they invent ways to win. They're probably going to be on a down cycle now. And they're also moving into a minor league facility. How about that? 2 out of Rob Manfred's 30 teams aren't even going to be in major league facilities in 2024 and probably 2025.
Right.
And, definitely with the A's and maybe with the Rays. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a round figure. And for them to do that, they're going to have to probably make some serious trades of bad contracts. I mean, their big void is at third base. And yes, Nolan Arenado might be traded, but he has a complete no-trade contract. A guy like maybe Alec Boehm from Philly, who's a third baseman, not making a lot of money. He's signed, he's team control through 26. So a guy like that I could see. Otherwise, it's going to have to be, and I'm just talking third base. It could be pitcher. It could be anywhere across the diamond, including the bullpen or rotation. Maybe trading for a bad contract, but getting a top prospect in return. So yes, we're spending money on this bad contract that's up in a year or 2.
Right.
Marcus Stroman. I mean, a guy who's making money and can be traded, can't void a trade to a minor league facility in Sacramento, but also for you to take this big contract, we're going to throw in this hotshot prospect. That might be the way to go, because the A's have enough money to get to 100. It's a matter of whether John Fisher will.
Well, and to your point earlier, $100 million is not much anymore because the league median is about $175 million. So there's nothing really to boast about getting to $100 million, to your point, based on where every other team is. You mentioned the Rays situation. So you've got the Rays and the A's opposite coasts, but similar situations in some ways, different in others. I mean, the A's are the ones that are desiring to play in a minor league park. The Rays have been forced into this situation with the roof ripped right off at Tropicana Field. I'd have to think the common thread is that both, to your point, are kind of a bad look. Do you see the A's and Rays as being more similar or more different where they're at right now?
Yeah, the Rays are following in the A's footsteps, and that's been the case on the field, where they've kind of created their own version of Moneyball to a high degree, competing with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the powers of the East over the last couple of decades. But now off the field, their owner is Stuart Sternberg, and he bought the team about a year apart from when Fisher bought the A's. So they've had 20 years to get this done.
That's right.
Neither has accomplished anything in that regard at all in their original, hometowns of St. Petersburg and Oakland. And both have been on that path to trying. And, how hard? Let me just say this. All the reports coming out of St. Petersburg and the county back in Florida, another Bay Area, by the way,
right,
is that the relationship between team and local politicians is just absurdly awful.
It is.
And that says, okay, now we know, now they know how it's been here.
Yeah.
Where finger pointing is a lot more, the favorite mechanism, rather than actually sitting in a room and discussing what we ought to do. And I blame both sides, obviously. Fisher could have stayed. And suddenly the ballpark in Vegas is like, what, 250 million more than that just originally anticipated.
Yep.
And that's going to be up to the A's to pay for.
Right.
Any overrings are up to John Fisher. So he's doing this. He also pledged $1 billion of his family money into this ball. So where was all that money when the A's were when Oakland was trying to cut a deal? I mean, if they were less than $100 million apart, yet he's going to divvy up an extra $250 million, whether it's from his own money or it's investors who haven't stepped forward yet, at least publicly. It's kind of a tragedy what happened in the Bay, as we both know.
Both Bays, because I don't think Tampa is that far off from an Oakland situation. And I've been reading comments from Rays fans, and they say, well, the commissioner has backed us. The commissioner says baseball is making it a point to stay in Tampa. Well, Rob Manfred, not too long ago, said the same thing about Oakland. It would be a mistake to leave Oakland, and look what they did, right? So
yeah, he said that 6 years ago.
Yep.
And he just said last month that we're committed to Tampa Bay and the Rays staying there for now. A direct quote.
Yeah.
And
for now.
For now. So what that means is he said that 6 years ago about the A's for now. But there's no guarantee that the Rays are staying there.
Nope.
They're already talking about getting out of their lease early, maybe making a settlement check to St. Petersburg and the county to get out of there, because they don't want to return to the Trop.
Right.
There's no roof. And it's a bad place for baseball.
Well, it costs too much to fix at this point, too. It's at least $56 million. Plus, to your point, there's Tampa out there that would be wanting a team. There's Orlando out there right around the corner, 90 minutes up the road, that wants a team. Nashville wants a team. We could go on and on and on. Just going back to the A's and their roster, I mean, players like Miller and Butler and Langoliers and Rooker and, what you said earlier is correct. I mean, all of a sudden, there's a lot to be excited about with that group of players. And if I'm a Mark Kotsay or a David Forst, baseball-wise, right, like you're getting what you want out of this. You're starting to see the turn in direction, the baseball team get better. Who knows whether the A's keep that team together or pay for it or add on to that team. But I want to focus in on those two individuals. And this is weird because I know them and you know them, and here we are talking about them. Do you think Mark Kotsay and David Forst Are they really interested in staying around the A's for the long term, considering like the rope that they have to hang on to with this team and Sacramento to Las Vegas?
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's been a subject discussed this offseason. At the GM meetings, I point blank asked David Forst, are you in this for the long term? And he was kind of shocked at the question. He said, yeah, absolutely. Of course I am. I mean, he's been with the organization 20 some years.
Right.
And working himself up from, assistant GM to GM and now overseeing all of baseball operations. So he had his fingerprints on a lot of those with Billy Beane playoff teams.
Yep.
Every 3 years, they had a 3-year run. And, most recently under Bob Melvin. So I imagine he's totally comfortable living in the Bay Area. I assume he's not going to move to Sacramento. It's probably an hour plus from where he lives in the East Bay. In traffic, an hour and a half. But when he comes home at night, it's an easy ride back with no traffic after night games, and there are plenty of night games.
Yeah, a lot of
So
them.
I think he is. I believe him that he is in this for the long run, and that includes Las Vegas. Mark Kotsay, on the other hand, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
He has a contract guaranteed through next season.
Right.
And so he's going into opening day as a lame duck. And I've asked, I said, is there going to be an extension so that he has some comfort level, like a 2-year guarantee, so he can realize I'm going to stick around? And there hasn't been any serious discussions I'm aware of, unless something happened in the last couple of weeks. But I'm sure the question will be asked again at the winter meetings next week.
Right.
But he's already interviewed with the Mets.
Last year, and then right after he interviewed with the Mets, the A's used their team option to extend him for the 2025 season, right? So they might be out of extensions. They'd have to do a new contract with him.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No more extensions, and they'd have to reopen discussions. And,
right.
Does he want to be there? And by the way, he has 307 losses.
It's a bad look for his resume. He is a better manager than that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, this is the start of his career. It's almost not fair to the baseball reference page of Mark Kotsay as a manager. People look it up and say, man, the guy's look what he's dealing with. I totally agree.
There's only been 3 other managers in history who have lost more games in their first 3 big league seasons. Most recently, the first 3 seasons, the Roy Hartsfield in Toronto, 77, 78, 79. Preston Gomez, the first 3 years with the Padres in 69, 70, 71, I think. And then before that, a guy named Doc Prothro with the Phillies in the late 30s, early 40s. And none of those guys lasted a full 4th season. And among all those guys, I mean, Kotsay there's no hot seat for this guy.
No.
He's done well. He's
of course.
done well given the roster, tremendously well.
Yeah, he started 50 feet underground. Now he's only about 20 feet underground. He's still digging his way out of it. I got 2 more A's things here for you. I made a video on this the other day, and it's my original thought, but I don't know if it carries any weight. I don't know if it has any merit. You tell me what you think about this. I know Oakland feels bad right now because they just got kicked in the shorts by the A's in their departure, and obviously the Warriors are gone, and the Raiders are gone, and Oakland has a lot more pressing issues than professional sports teams. Like, they've got enough on their plate, more serious priorities. But in terms of if they ever want a chance at Major League Baseball again, right here, right now, I think, is the time to get the wheels moving on a task force. And that would encompass people that are politicians, business leaders, people with sports backgrounds, people that could finance a new baseball team and a new baseball park, investors. Do you think there's any value in something like a task force for Oakland, or has the ship sailed on them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't have a whole lot of faith in the people who have been trying to keep a team here. So I think it would have to be initiated by a couple of billionaires.
Yeah.
Whether it's Joe Lacob, because we always hear that name, and he has interest if Fisher ever decides to sell.
Does Mark Benioff like baseball, by the way?
Yeah. Hey, anybody with money, doesn't matter if you like baseball.
The owner of NVIDIA, I forget that gentleman's name, but the owner of NVIDIA I know is doing quite well with the stock market these days. Yeah.
So if you have money, I think it starts there, and then from there you collect other investors, you collect politicians, you build up a task force. But I don't see it happening unless people are willing to spend. And where would they play? And
right.
Is the Coliseum property still available for something like that, or are they going into different areas? From all we've read, there are some financial issues with the project. The money isn't being paid initially. So that could always fold, and baseball could happen there. I mean, it was always the number one place for Fisher to build. I mean, Steve Schott told me that. Lou Wolf told me that. Joe Lacob told me that. And those guys, a lot more than John Fisher, know about getting stuff done with sports teams in terms of building, constructing, not just baseball, but Lou Wolf helped build San Jose, downtown. And, and Steve Schott, all the property in Santa Clara on down, and Joe Lacob, Chase, I mean, those three guys know a lot, and they didn't have any faith at the waterfront. And somehow John Fisher did, and that just blew up. It was never going to happen. And next thing you know, he's out of here because he never wanted to build at the Coliseum, and that's too bad.
I agree with you. They have to have some things squared away for sure. Like, there have to be no debates about a location and where they would do this and how they would do this and their messaging. It's a complicated thing. I just think if you put together a task force, at least that shows you have something and you're pointed in the right direction. Otherwise, they're just going to take this and wear this and not do anything about it, and decades will pass and we'll get no different result.
And then there's also San Jose.
Of course, right.
This commissioner's contract ends January of 29, then he's going to step down.
Right.
He's hoping to have expansion in place by then, not stadiums and teams and cities, but a blueprint for the two teams to go from 30 to 32.
Good luck.
He's not a big fan of the Bay Area, Oakland or San Jose. Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the White Sox, told me a couple of different times and ways that both Selig and Manfred should have allowed the A's to go to Santa Clara County.
Yeah.
So maybe a new commissioner comes in and looks at that a little closer, because Lou Wolf said he always had the votes.
Right.
Selig just never put it to a vote.
Right. Last thing here on the A's, and they have established that they cannot play a playoff game in Sacramento, whether that's their call, whether that's Major League Baseball's call, the Players Association's call, whoever it is. It's been determined that they will not be able to do that if they qualify for the postseason each of the next 3 years. So I'll put it like this. You tell me if you agree. It might be Major League Baseball's worst nightmare if the A's get good again in the next couple of years, because that's not going to be a good look. A wild card series or an ALDS, or you name it, that has to be played at a neutral site. Oof.
And is that neutral site Oracle Park in San Francisco?
It would have to be, right? That's the most logical option. It really is.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Unless the Giants make the playoffs simultaneously.
Ooh.
But
they might be. Baseball's kind of rooting, like, they don't want this to become a problem. And you know what? The same thing probably has to exist right now with the Rays. It's not unique to the A's, but this is a bad situation for baseball. They don't want two of their teams to be in the playoffs because of how it would look.
Even though they talk about how great it is that low market teams or low revenue teams could actually compete, if they do things right under this kind of wacky one-sided system that the Dodgers are taking advantage of in big ways. But you're right. It is a nightmare, but is it more of a nightmare than the Rays and A's even playing in minor league parks in 2024, 2025 and beyond?
We'll find out. We will find out for sure.